There are 7 continents on our planet. A continent is a large section of land that is separated from other areas of land. Most of the time, they are separated by water. The 7 continents are North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica. The country we are studying today is Egypt, and it is found on the African continent. Egypt is likely to be one of the oldest and most well-known civilizations on the earth. The mummies, the pyramids, the famous stories from the Bible are all part of Egypt. It was more than 5,000 years ago that people began to call themselves Egyptians. The Egyptian leaders were called kings or pharaohs, and the leadership was handed down from father to son for generations. The period of time that the leadership stayed within a certain family was called a dynasty, just like it was with the ancient Chinese. For more than 3,000 years, Egypt was one of the most powerful and advanced civilizations on earth. They were powerful because it was very rare for a group of people to exist as long as they did without ever being conquered by someone else. They were advanced because it takes very good math and planning to create something so massive and so precise as the pyramids of ancient Egypt. Although the pyramids could definitely be seen as a king trying to leave his mark on the world, they were really just a tomb. A tomb is a place where a person is buried. And in ancient Egypt, the more money you had, the bigger your tomb was. So you might imagine that the biggest pyramids were only for the pharaohs. Eventually, Egypt began to be influenced and then conquered by other empires. The Romans, the Muslims, the French, and finally Great Britain all ruled Egypt for a time. The last country to rule Egypt was Great Britain, and Egypt finally gained independence from Great Britain in 1922. However, they struggled with stability even after their independence. For the last 30 years, Egypt has been ruled by Hosni Mubarak. He was considered an autocratic ruler. Auto comes from the Greek word meaning self, and cratic comes from another Greek word meaning rule. So an autocratic leader is someone who rules by themselves. It is usually a bad thing to call a leader autocratic. It is similar to a dictator. In January of 2011, the Egyptian people began a revolution. They felt that Hosni Mubarak was cruel to the people and he was not allowing fair elections to elect new leaders. Mubarak eventually stepped down and the military was given control until a new leader could be elected. Egypt is the 30th largest country in the world in terms of land area, but not many people can live in all of Egypt because it is covered mostly by sand. The only places that people can really live is along the Nile River. In fact, 99% of the people live on just 5% of the land. The Nile River is literally the lifeblood of the country. Egyptian Arabic is the official spoken language of Egypt. And because Egypt has influenced so many parts of the world, Egyptian Arabic is the most common version of Arabic used. Egyptian food is primarily vegetarian. They don't eat much meat. And if you think about it, if you think about the layout of the land, this makes sense. There's not a lot of land available for animals to graze on. So, meat is rare and very expensive. Christianity was one of the first religions to reach Egypt that was not part of the ancient religious beliefs. Native Egyptian Christians account for about 10% of the population. Christian churches in Egypt are called Coptic churches, and its people are commonly called Copts. About 90% of the population, however, is Muslim. The Muslim religion is closely associated and tied into Egyptian law. Soccer is one of the most popular sports in Egypt, and they have one of the best soccer teams in the world. They also enjoy a few other sports that are popular British sports. The world is fascinated by the pyramids and the remnants of an ancient world power. It is hard to completely separate this fascinating and distinct history from the modern identity and culture, and perhaps this tie to the past is what makes Egypt so fascinating to the modern world.